Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and, with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
I'm going to talk tonight, first of all, about, I want to remind you that of course, spirituality and the aspect of spirituality is not a thought or a philosophy. It is more a way of life. It is a philosophy too, but it doesn't become a spiritual pathway or spirituality within your life until you start living it. And in order to understand it more, it is a being, Glynis. Thank you. In order to understand it more, we have to understand just how the universe works. We understand spirituality is living an honorable life in many ways, and you know, being kind to others and all of that stuff. But we also have to understand that because we are in a universe that I might add is ordered and has amazing stuff to it. We are guided by and controlled by what have been declared as universal laws. Now the universal laws are not something that a particular religion made up. It is a universal truth that people have come to accept and abide by over decades and decades, and probably thousands and thousands of years. But they are the laws of nature. They are unwavering and unchanging principles that govern every aspect of the universe and are the means by which our world and the entire cosmos continues to exist, thrive, and expand. And it is how we live our lives in accordance with those laws that determines exactly what's happening in our life and how rich and abundant or not so that our lives become. And if you have to understand, if you understand the laws and if you live in accordance with them, or if you choose to align yourself and harmonize with them, you're in a conscious way, then everything does flow in your direction. Then there is wonderful beneficial abundance that comes your way. And understanding the laws and going against them it kind of determines exactly what's going to come your way as well. And there is a law of harmony and a law of balance, and that was one of the things that I started out the material that I sent you with, and basically it's a part of creation. It's a wonderful balance. It's an equal exchange. For every action there is a reaction. For everything you do, that something comes back to you in direct proportion. Sometimes it's multiplied, but it's usually direct proportion. And throughout all of time, mystery schools and master teachers have taught that the law of abundance and compensation, they've phrased it appropriately for whatever time it served, but it applies to everyone. There are no exceptions, and it's one of those major principles of spirituality. There is an exact balance, and literally you'll be treated in exact proportion to the way you treat others. Now, sometimes you put it out and it doesn't come back to you quite the same way you expected it to. But the reality is sometimes we have to work off some of our past actions first before it starts to come into play within our lives. So it's not wise or advisable in any way, shape, or form that you spend a day giving out good things, turn around and says, well, that's crap, nothing happened to me, I'm going to go back to my old ways, because, of course, then that determines exactly what comes your way. And I started out with the golden rule, which to me is the foundation of how we need to really take a look at our lives. And that's do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I gave you as many different explanations as to where you can find it in all sorts of spiritual and religious texts. And it's phenomenal. We went back, I think, 3,500, possibly even 5,000 years, in finding it as something that everybody should sort of govern their life and follow as to their life and action. It's found in traditional and non-traditional. It's found in philosophical statements, as Plato and Socrates, and I mean, it's all over the place. And if when you think about it, it's such a simple phrase, and yet it's the simplicity that makes people not pay attention to it. And we have trivialized it and made it hackneyed and very trite by not paying attention to it. If you do nothing else in your entire life, if all you do ever, ever, ever is live by the golden rule and put it into effect within your life, you're going to find that there is abundance that comes into your life that is profound and amazing. And I think one of the things that we have done that trivializes it is to just take it at face value, to just take the words, say the words, and not realize that it's not only the physicality of the words, it's the emotional and the philosophical and the intellectual aspect of it that need to be applied to our lifetimes as well. And when you take those other levels of consciousness and are applying it as well, that's when it begins to work with you with the greatest amount of richness, and that's where there's a profit, as far as a profit that comes your way as far as emotional and intellectual concepts. It isn't just, if I smack you, you're going to smack me back probably, but it's the thoughts. If I'm thinking ill of someone, then other people are going to be thinking ill of me. If I I'm approaching something without the whole core of my being, then the return of my investment in an emotional way is not as rich as it could be. So that you're really not paying attention to the fullness of the phrase. It's simple, it's easy, and because it's so simple, we ignore it for the most part. Not everybody does, but it doesn't come into play as much in our lives as would be wise, and it doesn't come into play as often as it should, and because of that, we miss out on a lot of richness in our lives. Now, I talked briefly about the law of cause and effect, and it has a great deal to do with, what you set in motion comes back at you. There is a boomerang effect. It is absolute. The law of cause and effect says for every cause there is an effect, and for every effect there is a cause. So when you're talking about someone, when you're in your casual most times and places within your lives, if you are gossiping, if you are speaking ill of someone, if you are being judgmental of someone, it means that comes back at you. And for those on a spiritual pathway, it's really important that you remember that. I have to admit that there have been times in my life when I have not responded, and when someone has done something to me and I really wanted to go out and get even and stuff like that, and I didn't respond. Part of it was because I knew it would come back at me, and the other part was because it would make me look bad. Now, both of those are bad reasons, but I did the right thing for the wrong reasons. And as I get better and better and better on the spiritual pathway, I will just know that the universe will take care of whatever is going on, and that I will be able to, I know there will be a balance there. But it's also this law of cause and effect has to do with our everyday life too. If we are doing something, if we are working for someone and we aren't putting our heart into it, then chances are that we aren't going to get the benefit of that. And one of the things that this cause and effect applies to is our professions, what we do for a living. And the reality here is that if you don't like your job, you aren't putting all of yourself into it, that means you're not going to get that much back from whatever it is you're doing. You could be working your tail off. You could be grinding away and putting your nose to the grindstone that is unbelievable, but if your heart isn't in it, if your spirit isn't in it, if you aren't investing yourself in whatever that job is, then your return is going to be diminished greatly. So it comes back to that. It's by if your job is pursuing your passion, then that's the greatest richness you could possibly. Wait a minute, a jet is landing. I do live close to an airport, but every now and then they decide to land in my front yard. So it's a matter of if you're following your passions, if you're discovering your passions, if your passions become your line of work, then there is such a great richness that you're investing into whatever you're doing that you're getting a great amount of richness back. It's one of those absolutes. It's one of those universals that just absolutely cannot be denied. And and if you I will digress slightly. I gave a lot of stuff away at a convention I went to once. I just gave readings away, or I gave things away that I had because it felt good, and I was having a good time. And at the end of the day, people gave me gifts back, and I didn't expect them at all. And yet, they came out of the blue. And a friend of mine who was with me said, why are you getting all those things? And my response was, I don't know. I gave stuff away, and it never occurred to me that I would get something in return. And so 2 weeks later, we were at a craft fair, and somebody admired one of his pictures, and he gave a picture away because somebody couldn't afford it. And I said, that was a really cool thing to do. And he said, well, yeah, I'm going to test out your theory. And I looked at him and I said, oh, you got to be wrong. You got to be kidding me. And at the end of the day, he said, well, that was crap. I'm never going to do that again. I got nothing back at the end of the day. And I said, but you gave you gave thinking you'd get something in return, and that wasn't the right way. You should have given it away because it made you feel good. And he said, didn't make me feel good. I wanted something in return. I didn't get anything back. So from now on, they can either pay or they have to walk away. And I said, well, you learned something here. So it's let's understand here that what you put out comes back at you. What you give away comes back at you. But your intent in the giving is almost as important as the giving itself. Are you giving because you love? Are you giving because it makes you feel good? Are you giving because you know it's going to make somebody else feel good and you just like to see smiles on people's faces? So that it's part of this, the whole spiritual aspect of it. It's your intent. Why are you doing the good things you're doing? Hopefully you're doing good things. So it's why are you doing it? What are you putting out there? What is it that you are looking to share with everybody? And so the other part we have to look at is where is our consciousness? Are we looking at doing things to make life better and to make life easier and to make life more joyful? Or are we doing it because we feel we have to? And if you feel you have to, that's the wrong reason. It's really important to understand that these laws work absolutely all the time. It isn't something that they turn on and they turn off. These laws are absolutes. and they are constantly, ever present within our lives. The universal laws are always working to balance out the universe, and we can either work with them or we can not work with them. And if we don't work with them, then the amount that we give with unconditional love is the amount that comes back at us. And if we're finding that our lives are empty and that we're not getting what we want in return, then we have to understand that we haven't let go, that our ego has been involved, and the ego can, and Glennis is right, ego can make big problems for us, because if we think we deserve, then we're putting strings on what we're doing. Actually, we're here as a gift of the Creator. We're here because our spirit wanted to come down and learn and grow and share. And it can only learn and grow and share if it's done with all of your heart, with all of your spirit, with all of your energy. And what's happening in today's society is that we are so restricted by what organized religions and what our parents and our teachers have taught us, that the unconditionality of the human spirit, being as profound as it is, it's absolutely held back and held down by all of those preconceived notions that people have poured into our heads. So basically, we're here to sort of reprogram ourselves, and we're here to understand, even more what is most important for us. The other material that I gave you was on the law of attraction, and of course, all of us have seen the videos, and all of us have read the book just about. And if you haven't, it's worth doing. But they don't give you the entire story with the law of attraction, and it's they kind of make it seem that if you make a vision board or wishing can make it so, and it's not true. There is a great deal more to the law of attraction than just wishing for something. It doesn't work that way. And the positive side of all of the books and The Secret and everything is that it did focus people more on the spiritual side of life and started people thinking. But the negative side is they watered down the power and the applications to the point that it's all trivialized, and it's a bit of a joke. You can't just visualize something and make it happen, but you can visualize something and work towards it within your life and help to manifest it within your reality, but you have to work towards it. You have to earn it. You have to you have to deserve it. You have to incorporate, you have to shift your perception, and you have to change how you act and how you treat those around you. And as you put that kind of energy into your life, it becomes richer, and the universe does give you not what you want, but what you need. And sometimes we kind of get into trouble by thinking we need something, we want something, and thinking we need it, but the reality is we don't. So the universe will always give us what we need, always, always, always. But we have to be flowing with it. We have to be one with the energy. We have to be a part of it, and it's then everything comes to us, and it's amazing. And not only I told everybody that this was not a psychic or a mediumship class, and it's not. But what happens is, when the more spiritual you are, the more creatively you invest yourself within your reality, whether it is being creative and gifting things to other people when you don't have money, because you can always give time, and time is the most precious gift you could ever give to anybody, ever, 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 ever. So that it's a matter of, what are you pouring into the reality? What are you sharing with other people? What kind of kindnesses are you doing to others? And the more of those kind of unconditional acts that you share, the greater the return comes to you from the universe. And sometimes it's money, sometimes it's people, sometimes it's having synchronicities take place within your life that you never could have perceived of before. But basically what we're doing here is trying to, I guess, me and my higher consciousness, what we are doing here is trying to give you the tools so that you can open yourself up to your own higher consciousnesses, to that spirit that you have inside of you. Being on a spiritual pathway, being a person on a spiritual journey is literally turning yourself on and becoming more in tune with that part of you inside of you that has knowledge and power and gifts and tools and wisdoms that are just beyond comprehension. And when you are listening to that higher consciousness inside of you, you are paying attention to that spirit that you carry within you. And when that spirit is able to impact your consciousness and your reality, it means that you are more in tune with the infinite. You are one with the Creator. You have a greater understanding of the meaning of life. And it is amazing. And in doing that, by becoming more sensitive to that spirit you carry within, it enables you to be more spiritually aware of that level of consciousness in other people. So, and I'm talking about what some people would call your intuition. Now, I'm not sure what your, Glennis actually has her ninja up, but I don't see her in the queue. That's cheating, Glennis. Is Glennis in the queue? That's cheating. You can't do that, Glennis. You have to call in to talk. So anyhow, I'm not sure what you call your higher consciousness, or if you have a name like Fred or Ginger or whatever, or if you understand that if you understand that your intuition is really the wealth of knowledge stored within, it is your higher consciousness. And when you have an intuitive feeling about something, it's your higher consciousness trying to help you move into an appropriate direction. And the more you trust that intuitive side of you, the more you trust your higher consciousness, the more in tune you become with that aspect of you that is where you want to go. You know, I've said over and over again, the answer isn't out there, it's in here. And it is. And all of the answers are in here. And the more we tune into that aspect of ourselves, whether we do it through meditation, whether we do it through paying attention to our dreams or our inspirations or whatever, inspirations, spontaneous insight, things like that, that's our higher consciousness trying to get through to us. And the more we listen to it, the more we become in tune with that part of ourselves, the closer we are to having a dialogue, a conversation. And when that happens, then we're able to sort of move into new directions of understanding. You know, everybody says, you know, how are you so psychic? I'm not psychic in that it isn't a psyche thing. I'm in tune with my higher consciousness to a great degree. And when I trust it, when I know the ego is not there, when I know that I am absolutely just letting things roll from my tongue and my mouth, then I know that higher consciousness is speaking. Then I know that there is that aspect of tuning into that consciousness level within me, and that's where I get my information from. So it's kind of it's a phenomenal experience, and it's one that I think all of us from time to time have tuned into. Okay. Now, Anne, you put a ninja up. So do you have something here to share with us?
Well, you know, I have to say I agree with a lot of the stuff that you're saying, you know, as far as like the golden rule. I think everybody has their own personal golden rule, their own code that they live by. Um, whether that be treat others as you want to be treated. I kind of live by the one that, you know, look at people as a mirror. And this way, you know, I'm not gonna do harm to myself because that would just be stupid. You know, and this way, but I've always been like that ever since I was small. But I'm not a malicious person. I never want to do harm to anything or anyone. So I've always been like that. So that's always been kind of like my motto. And as far as the higher self goes, again, I agree with you because I think that we've used so many different things, and sometimes it is a little bit difficult for us to listen to when that little voice kicks in. But when we do and we give over to it and we kind of don't doubt that, we are kind of like in that euphoric bliss, because everything, it's like the world is your oyster. Everything just goes right. There is no street that you can't go down because every light is green.
Absolutely.
You know, it is amazing. You know, people laugh. They go, "Oh yeah, you can't ask for a parking spot." I don't ask for parking spots. I just go intuitively. Which way am I supposed to go down for the parking spot? Turn left, turn right, turn left. You'll find it. And I do exactly that, and exactly there is the parking spot.
Now, do you have trouble ever determining whether it is your ego talking or your higher consciousness or your intuition or whatever you want to call it?
In the beginning, because I studied under Doreen Virtue, and she was a wonderful, wonderful teacher in the beginning. But I felt like there was a lot of ego issues still working under her. And I'm, you know, God bless her. I think she's still a wonderful teacher, but I still think there's a lot of ego issues there. And one of the things that she did teach me was when you have a question, whether it is your ego or your higher self speaking to you, or you have, you know, you're in conflict with that, ask ego to step aside. I was like, duh, that's so simple. Why didn't I think of that? So that's what I would always do. You know, I would say, ego, step aside. And because it is your ego, it has to listen because you're in command. So ego steps aside.
So another good question here is, so what's the inner resistance to listening to that inner voice, the spirit, when we know that when we do, everything goes wonderful? What is it that holds us back often and we still make the other choice?
Fear.
Yeah.
Fear is very physical. And ego seems to be very attached to physical. You know, because pain is very physical. You know, and so when you are very attached to the physical, don't do that, you're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
You know, so you tend to go, okay, I'm not going to do that because I'm going to get hurt. You know, I remember that pain. I fell, you know. But, you know, you got to look past that. You got to go, I can do this.
Right.
And then once you do it, you go, oh, I did that. And, you know, sometimes that's why they say if you fall off a horse, get right back on. Because if you don't, you'll never do it again. because you become too afraid. And I think that, once you truly start to give over to truly believing in yourself, and yourself, your higher self, the God that's within you, all that fear and all that doubt starts to shed, like the skin that we wear, that we call the physical human garment.
Absolutely.
And,
I'm gonna keep your mic open, and I'm gonna open Glennis's. Hi, Glennis. Would love
Hi, Barbara.
to have
how are you?
Doing well. I would
Thank
love
you.
to, you put a face up. So what do you have to share here?
Mine was a little bit further back in looking at responsibility, and I'm finding and have found for many years that we all run around wanting rights and not picking up the responsibility. And I think a lot of the issues come back to accepting where we need to have rights, but the responsibilities must go hand in hand. And in that, thinking of a lot of outcomes, people just put things out there and think somebody else is going to fix it up because they're not balancing the scales.
No, that's very true.
I kind of lost my thought. I had more than that, but sitting here waiting to get on the phone, I kind of lost it again. But that's a big issue. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think.
Go ahead. So there is great responsibility going here. There's tremendous responsibility that goes along with this. Understanding that there's that balance is phenomenal. But the responsibility when we go to do something, we have to understand that there is tremendous responsibility because we are putting in action something that is very, very important. And when we put something in action, we have to be willing to take the responsibility for the results. Not so much even as, I'm doing this because I'm going to get donuts. It's we have to think beyond the donuts and understand that the donuts are going to put weight on us. So is this really good? So
it's accepting that part, It's accepting that part. When I venture out to do or to say whatever, the ultimate end is my responsibility.
Absolutely. And, the Native Americans have, some of the Native Americans have a 7-generation philosophy. If I do this, how is it going to affect 7 generations from now? And understanding that every action is like a ripple. It keeps on going. And it down the line, it can have phenomenal impact on people that your intent was not to do that. So it is very important for us to pay attention to, what are the consequences of our actions, and are we going to take responsibility for them? Absolutely, that's a part of it too. Okay, we have Althea here. Hi, Althea. Did you want to add in here?
Yeah, I did actually. Hi, Barbara. Hi, everyone. A couple of thoughts. I've been listening as I was driving back with a kitty cat in the car, so it was kind of fun. Anyway, so the golden rule, right? You were talking about do unto others. One of the things that I had thought about over some time was the corollary to this is that for many of us spiritual people, we forget to do unto ourselves as well as we do unto others. So, that's kind of like the flip side of that coin, that we have to remember not to put everybody else first all the time, because many of us tended to be and tend to sometimes still be the healers, the people that are taking care of others. We're in this field of spirituality a lot of times because of whatever we've gone through in our lives that led us here, and we tend to be very aware of our actions to other people and how well we're speaking to them and being encouraging and loving and patient and kind, and yet our own internal dialogue often is not quite that. So I would put it out there to remember the corollary to it. And also I wanted to talk a little about The Secret. When you mentioned that, the one thing that always hit me about that is they very little talk about the action that's required. You know, so the intention of having the things happen to you, that's all fine and good, you know, but you're right, you have to take some action to meet it halfway. And the last thing I want to put out is when you talk about the intention of good works, right? So that man who didn't, you know, he had the wrong intention about giving things away, you know, he was doing it in order to potentially get. I think there can sometimes be a little paradox happening because, you know, if you do something good, you know, theoretically or spiritually, according to the law of the Spirit, something good will come back to you either from that person or another source, and yet you don't want to be doing it for that, but you have that knowledge. So you have to constantly be checking in with your awareness and be self-aware of, am I truly doing this for the right reason, or am I trying to fool myself and spirit into getting me what I want because I'm being a good girl or a good boy?
Well, the cool thing is that you cannot BS the universe. So that if your intention if your intention is to get, you won't. Right. I mean, you can fool some of the people some of the time, and you know that thing, but you can never fool the universe. The universe absolutely, the universe knows, and sometimes the universe knows even when you don't know. So that's a cool part to it, and you know it's sort of like when people think it's time for them to move on to another level or whatever, they announce, you know, to the universe, okay, I paid my dues, you know, when do I get the good stuff? I'm ready now. And you hear laughter on the other side.
Right.
No, you're not.
Right.
No, you're not.
Not quite yet, right.
Yeah, no, it's really, and I think the being kind to yourself, absolutely that's appropriate, but that applies more to the balance. You have to have a balance in your life. You have to make sure that you have, you know, the physical and the spiritual balance, what goes out, what comes in balance, and you know, it isn't so much that you know you're gifting yourself as much as you are balancing yourself. I think that is more important, and the golden rule is really how you deal with your environment.
Yes.
And you know, what am I putting out? What am I sharing? And you know, the important thing is your perception and your intent.
Right, and all about your presentation.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I agree. I just wanted to share that other side of it because I find for myself and for some of the people I work with, it's not so much about not doing the right thing for others. It's much more about remembering to include themselves in the whole of always doing what's right according to your heart, your intention, and your guidance from Spirit.
Well,
Exactly.
I think that was kind of like you know, I mean, since this is like religious in a sense, because we are talking spirituality and religion, that's something that, you know, we've kind of been, you know, it's been chiseled into our brains that, you know, you got to do the right thing or you're not going to make it into heaven. So, you know, it's kind of like we're constantly checking in, and even though we're checking in with our integrity and are we doing this for the right reasons, and do we do enough of it? Let's check our balance and score sheets, and okay, I did this much. Am I up to par yet? You know, did I make it there yet? And well, I did this for so and so. Why are they treating me like this? And it's not about checks and balances, and I think we forget that. And we shouldn't even be kind of thinking that. It's all about, I'm picking up the garbage on the street because I care about the earth. I don't really care if people are looking at me like, why is she picking up that dirty stuff? It's disgusting. You know what I'm saying? It's not about what other people think. It's just about how I feel.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is it isn't one thing in balance. In other words, the balance that we have with the universe is a total balance.
Right.
So that you know, all right, I did something nice for this person, and now something nice is going to come back to me. It's a total balance on your whole lifetime. So
right.
you may have turned a corner, and you may have become the purest saint that ever walked the face of this earth, but you still have to balance out all the crap you did before you turned the corner. So,
right.
So the good will come back. You have to know that it will come back. But sometimes it takes a lot longer than you would think. It isn't absolute. It is.
I think once you're on a spiritual path, a committed, fully intentional spiritual path, we have instant karma in our life. You know, if you do something good, typically something good will come back to you. If you do something bad, boy, you get bit in the butt pretty fast.
Well, yeah, in that case you do, absolutely. But it is a total lifetime that you're looking at the balance for, not just the last 2 or 3 years. So sometimes it takes us a little longer to work off, you know, what we've already built up before we understood where we were coming from. I think we have Sister Marie here who has a comment too. Hi, Marie?
Yes, hi, it's Marie.
Hi.
Good evening to everyone.
Good evening.
Okay.
Hi. Oh, I'm glad there's more than one of us this time. That's kind of fun. I like that. Thank you, Barbara. I wanted to, on my way home and driving, I was thinking about getting on tonight just a little while ago. And I thought, you know, I kind of went into meditative prayer, but kept my eyes on the road. And
that's a good thing.
That's a very good thing because I've been known not to. The thought that came in, the topic that I should meditate on before calling was the spice, as in the spice of life. And then I heard, what makes you happy to get up in the morning? What gives you joy? And those are the two questions that came in. And, of course, in my own mind, I thought about a lot of things, the reason that question came up, or those two questions came up in that topic. And then hearing the conversation and dialogue that you're now having, it kind of falls right into that same venue. And now I understand the questions, and that's all I called to say.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. No, I think that one of my one of my problems with The Secret is that it kind
it's not a secret. No.
No, and that, you know, when I saw it, all I could think of was, this isn't a secret. This has been around forever. Why is everybody, you know, so blown away by this stuff that we've known forever? And
I was mad that they were selling it, and they were taking money from people who didn't have money and just wanted to get further ahead spiritually, just wanted to be happy and grow, and really were just giving all that they had just to do this. And they already knew what was being offered.
Well, they commercialized it so that it took away a lot of the magic, and I love magic, and I think magic should be shared absolutely. We've got Marguerite here too. Hi, Marguerite, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Marguerite.
Okay.
Hi. I'm going to have to go back just a little bit because you've kind of done a lot of things. But when Anne was talking about, when Anne was referring to religion and how, you know, we were programmed into, you know, either believing or fearing into a certain thing, certain way, that's how my upbringing was, because I was brought up Catholic for 8 years, going through Catholic school and having
that was the golden rule across the knuckles,
right there. Well, in the first year, my first year, it just didn't seem right. Okay, so I just basically I was just so afraid to say, I don't understand this. I can't get it through my head. And as each grade went on until I was in 8th grade, it was like, nope, this isn't right. I'm sorry. But I still was afraid to say anything. Now it's like, well, I knew, but that fear that they want to, they just don't want you to know it. They don't want you to know anything. So for me, the written word is man's word, but you can follow it. That's fine. But that's not I don't necessarily agree with written word. I just know what is right. I know for me how I feel. If I, like what Anne says, if you're doing something right, you know it's right. You're doing it not with ego or anything else. You just know it. And I can't argue with anybody because everybody has their own opinions about how they came across their own knowing or their own being or anything else. But just to me, I kind of wipe out anything that's written. And if it comes across and it resonates, that's fine. But I just can't sit and say, okay, oh, that makes sense, because sometimes it just doesn't.
Yeah, I want to share something with you. James Van Praagh. I stole this from James Van Praagh. I don't know who he stole it from, but his definition. No, Yvonne. I like to give credit where I can. But the definition of fear, F-E-A-R, is false ego appearing real.
Yes. Right. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that happens to all of us. All of us have things that we haven't totally worked out. That's why we're here. That's why we're here. Mm-hmm. And if we look at those things that we fear, and we realize that it's just something that's put there so we can recognize the truth, it makes it so much easier to deal with it. And so I agree with you. I mean, I spent a number of years in Catholicism. I tried on an awful lot of different religions before I discovered that all of them were the best way to do it. Just put them all together and take the best out of everything, and that's
exactly what I did.
Yes. Yep. That's what I do. Yeah.
So I call myself now a universalist.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Whatever it is, I'll share it. I'll participate. It's got to have something worthwhile if there are a whole bunch of people playing around at it. So, but when it gets down to it's how we treat each other, it's how we perceive the choices that we're making, and how we, is it for the good of all? Is it for the profit of all? Is it something that is just going to benefit me? And if it is, then my ego is here at play and having a great time. But if it is something that is given freely, if it is something that is just shared because of the love of the experience and the joy that it gives you in the sharing, then you've got something going on. And it's really important that we pay attention to these things, and especially our intuition. I mean, if you suddenly, everybody thinks intuition is just another part of consciousness, no big deal, and inspiration is just another part of intuition. If you renamed intuition that master spirit within me, you'd pay a whole lot more of attention to it.
Mhm. I agree.
And a lot of it takes a long time to get to the place where I feel this. Why do I feel this? Where is this coming from? And if you're feeling something, it's coming from that part of you that is the spirit that you carry inside. It's that spirit trying to talk to you, trying to make a point, trying to give you a nudge in a certain direction. And if your ego is really strong, your ego will say, don't be ridiculous, that's just your imagination, and that's nothing, go with me, I have a whole lifetime of experience to draw from, while that spirit within will back up and say, maybe you have another lesson to learn here, maybe I should keep quiet while you learn that lesson as well. And you really want the intuition to talk louder than the ego. And you get to a point where you're able to do that. You're able to open to that aspect of yourself and say, are you sure if I jump off this building I'll float? Perhaps that's not the wisest way to go, but it's sort of like we have to find a way of trusting, and we have to find a way of opening up to that aspect, because that's the purpose of the spiritual journey. The spiritual journey is to get in touch with that spirit that's making the journey and try to work in synchronicity with it. And as a result, you become so much more sensitive to your reality and everywhere you're going and everybody you meet. And that's the magic that happens.
Well, when you're going through your whole emotional ego, intuitive, everything wrapped up into one. You've trusted your higher self, but you're still in human form. So there is still a part of you that knows that if you do jump off that building, your behind is going to die. That's a reality. That's a real, that's something that you cannot escape. Unless, of course, you land on a trampoline or there's water below or, those types of things, or, King Kong catches you.
That spirit within you is totally cognizant of the fact that if this particular body is destroyed, it'll just come back and get another one. So, it's not the end of the world for the spirit. It is for the ego, however.
Right. But when you reach a certain point in your evolution, your ego, it also evolves. So your ego does not, it evolves and becomes a higher ego, as well as your higher spirit, as your higher self.
True.
And so, now I'm getting a little ahead of us, so I don't want to go there too much. But, with that being said, when you're still in this, in your younger stages of evolution, you're in the physical form and you're in the 3D plane going, but I'm still afraid. And your higher self is going, and by right you should be. So, logically, you need to climb off the building and use common sense and go from there. You know what I mean? So there is some give and take here, and go. You know what I'm saying? So not everything can be okay. Well, there's a spiritual thing that you can, do from the highest point of view. Not everything can be handled from there.
No, that's true. But the ego, even an evolved ego, even a highly evolved ego, still has just this lifetime of experiences to draw from. It has philosophy of other things, but it still is tied just to this reality, and it doesn't have the knowledge, the wisdom, the understanding of where we've been and where we're going. I'm in the middle of a motorcycle track here now. I totally love where I live. It's just a place motorcyclists like to go to see how fast they can go before they hit a tree. And yeah, it's amazing. 3:00 in the morning is a great time for them. but you're right. The consciousness grows, hopefully, and understands the process that the whole body is going through. But the body is only for this lifetime.
Right.
And the ego is very protective of the body, because without the body, the ego doesn't exist.
Right.
So it will prevent us from hopefully doing anything that would harm the body. Higher consciousness is not really that involved in the physical reality, though it does manifest within the physical reality, though it is gathering information from experiences within the physical reality. The spirit within is basically taking things on another level, on an interactive level. It's looking at things. It's standing in the middle of the universe, perceiving everything. The consciousness is standing on this planet, perceiving as much as it can. And you have both of those aspects and qualities within you. And sometimes they don't agree.
Well, I have a question.
Sure.
And I've told the story to a small group of friends, but I was not fighting with my ego, but I was still trying to get my ego to where, okay, just like you said, if it's not something I need to know, or if it's, it's in this place where I have to hear it, go ahead. But this one night, I kept getting this message almost screaming at me, and I thought, well, this isn't right, because it was a negative message. So I basically just shook my head so it would stop.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, that message was right. So how do you, what, to me that was kind of like, okay.
Can you give us an example? Give us an example.
Oh, gosh. Something was going to happen.
Okay.
And that message was going over and over and over again.
Okay, so like a fire?
No, to a person.
Okay.
And, just like, the fear that, if it's something bad, you shouldn't listen to it. So I just basically okay, I've got to stop this and just, get rid of it. So, and I had asked somebody a while later, like months, years later maybe, am I going to be getting things like this? Is it kind of like a premonition kind of thing? And, well, probably not.
Well, why would you label that ego and not your intuition?
Because of it actually frightened me. That's how bad it was. So I just, like for me to be standing there. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Did it actually happen?
Yes, it did. Unfortunately, it did. So.
So it was.
It wasn't anything I could do.
Yeah, it was a premonition, though. It was a premonition, and it was it was accurate. So your responsibility was to, in some way, impart the knowledge without terrifying someone. Like, let's just, this is a for instance. If you saw a car accident, you could say to the person that you saw having this accident, you could say, please be careful while you're driving. I have a feeling that this isn't a good time for you to be driving. You have the responsibility to sort of give the message, but not terrify the person, because lots of times what we get is subject to our own interpretation.
Exactly. That's why what that message was I had no idea of how to react to it. It was kind of just shocked me, I guess, because it was for a family member. Let's just say that it wasn't something that you would think for your, like it would ever happen. So, I'm kind of like, well, I'm really listening now. I'm really okay, and now it's all more mellow, and it's just. But for some reason, that message was it was a screaming message. So I'm like, okay, so you're going to give me premonitions of just this stuff, but it hasn't happened since. But it was.
No, that.
You know.
No, it doesn't happen like that. Every now and then, I can remember my mother was taking me to a party that I was supposed to go to, and we were driving down the road, and I said to her, "Turn around and go home." And she said, "Well, you've got this party you're going to," and I said, "No, I'm going to cancel. Turn around and go home. We need to go home." And I didn't know why, but we turned around and went home, and there was a horrible accident on the throughway, and we would have probably been right in the middle of it had we not turned around and gone home. Mm-hmm. Now, that was action I took for myself. That's an easy kind of thing to react to. But when you're talking about another person and giving a message of some sort to them, you have to be careful not to give exactly what you got, because you're interpreting that as a fearful thing that could happen to them. But you can caution them.
Right.
And you know, if you see you know, a runaway bus plowing into them, just you know, say, "Look, I don't have a good feeling, so you know, maybe you should stay home." You have an obligation to give a gentle caution, but if the person chooses to not pay attention, that's their stuff, and so you know, you have the responsibility to give something gently, but not exactly what you get, because everything you get it comes through your level of perception. So best example I have of that is I have a friend who is a reader, and she kept calling me and saying, "I'm throwing cards for myself, and I keep getting death. I keep getting death. I keep getting death." And she said, "I'm going to die." And I kept saying, "No, you're not going to die. You know that card doesn't mean death. It means rebirth." And this went on for maybe 2 or 3 months. And finally she kept calling me every so often and saying, "I did it again, and I got death. I got death. I got death." And I finally said, "You know, I do remember you saying something time after time after time after time that involves this." And she said, "What was that?" And I said, "You've always said to me over and over again, I'd rather die than get married again." And I said, "I think you're going to get married again." And she said, "Oh, I'd rather die than get married again." 6 months later, I was at her wedding.
Mm-hmm.
So do understand that there can be very, very gentle ways of giving a message that takes responsibility off of you. And if you further are bothered by it, write it down in a journal. This is what I saw. This is what I felt. Mm-hmm. As soon as you write it down, you can let go of it. Messages that come, you know, things like that, until you utter them or open to them or write them down, will keep coming at you. If you want to get rid of them, write them down. Because that says...
Yeah. Well, and there's somebody in the chat room who knows exactly what happened. So, unfortunately, that message was just for me, I think, and not for who something happened to. So, I think it was for me as a warning, just. And they said, you know, how would you prepare for something like that? You know, it's exactly. There was just no way that I could have handled anything like that, which I did anyway. But so now I know. But it was like getting over what I thought was maybe my ego getting in the way, which was my ego, but it was just trying to get my attention. And so now I'm just kind of. I am different. I am just, I don't know how to explain it any
I can understand it. Becoming as sensitive as a lot of us are, you know, becoming sensitive makes us, you know, first of all, the sensitivity is to ourselves, and then it's to other people. And there's a responsibility there. And the responsibility is to make sure that whatever you say, however you say it, is done with love and is done with gentleness. Okay, we got Althea wants to say something too. Hi, Althea, go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to share a quick story. You were talking about synchronicity and about, putting things forward and having things come back. I had a really cute thing happen that just blew me away a little bit over this last week. Saturday I worked a house party, and there was one of the people I read for who was just starting to open up to her spiritual path. She felt energy for the first time, was starting to see auras, and she was very excited. And we had a good reading. And a day or two later, she emailed me and she said, "Well, do you teach?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I sure do. I'd love to." And she asked me what my rate was. And I put that in the note, and I said at the bottom of it, it just occurred to me to put in, and if money's an issue, I'm always open to barter. There's lots of things I could use or need. So she sends me back a note, and she's like, "Oh, my God, that would be so wonderful. I don't have money, but, the fact that you're open to barter is great. What I do is I do yard work, and I garden, and I help people clean their house and get organized. And, Barbara, my situation right now, but I'm getting ready to move. And my man is on the West Coast, so the yard has fallen to hell. I need yard work. I need somebody to help me with gardening. I need to help cleaning the house and getting organized." I just kind of stepped back and laughed and was like, could spirit be any nicer? So here's this girl thinking, I'm giving her this great gift. And I'm like, holy cow, this is exactly, if I could ask for the exact barter of what I needed and wanted, it would have been what she has to offer. So talk about synchronicity and, putting some good stuff out there and getting it back in spades. I'm bubbling, as you can hear, I'm sure, how happy and we're going to start next week from Sunday. She's going to come over for her first lesson, and then we're going to go see what she can do here. But sometimes it's just too damn cool.
That's really cool. Boat Mom has a question here. She wants to know, how do you know if it's a message preparing you or a heads up of what you should do, that you should do something? Annie?
A message preparing you or a heads up that you should do something? I think a message preparing you is maybe something that's showing you future things. Preparing you?
Yeah, that's a good question. How do you know if it's preparing you to be able to face something that's coming your way, or if it's a message you should give to someone? The intuition is very good. Go ahead, Marie. Your mic's still open.
Well, that is a good question, and I did say something about that in the chat. It kind of gets to a point of knowing what's yours to report and to share, and what is yours just to know. And especially the more sixth sensory you become, there's very little that you miss. I remember driving down the street near the Midway Airport in Chicago years ago, and I got this ominous feeling that a plane was going to come through the gate. It was just scary, and I just turned off and went way around, a longer way to get to where I was going because I didn't want to go past that gate. Well, about 3 months or 2 months later, a plane did slide through and people died on ice. And so, if I called someone and said, "Oh, hey, a plane's going to slide through the gate," well, they may not put me in jail for that one, but people have called in and told about murders they dreamt or saw, and then they ended up being interrogated and in trouble. So you have to kind of gently pick your place in everything that comes to you. And as you said, Barbara, it might be just a warning just for your own comfort. Or somebody said in chat, someone had a dream about a car flat. And I've done that before. And ask people, do you want to know this information? Because sometimes people don't, and it's not fair for you to give it to them if they don't want it. And if they say yes, can share, because, it's really very delicate. So that's basically one that I wanted to share. You're going to experience and know a lot of things, but you can't intervene with everything.
Yeah.
Well,
and
here's...
Go ahead, Ann.
I had a, I dream a lot, and, well, everybody does, but I remember a lot of my dreams, and I find that usually when I have a dream and I discuss a dream with a certain person, whoever that person that I'm talking to the dream about or relaying the dream to, my dream usually is for them in an odd sort of way. And, like, for instance, we'll use Linda. And I said to Linda, I said, I had this really weird dream, and I explained to her the dream. And I said, I don't know why I feel it's for you, but it has to do with sports, and I think it has to do with your daughter. And we kind of went down, and I said, I'm going to go with it because, ever since I said that I wasn't going to doubt spirit anymore, I'm not gonna. So there you have it. Okay. And I'm going to leave it at that. And she left me a note on my computer validating the dream that I had. So I think that you can't really know. It's like you almost have to be guided. Sometimes you'll be guided to drop the message in somebody's lap. And sometimes you won't. Like, sometimes I'll be doing a reading for someone, and they'll ask me a question, and I will hear spirit go, mm-mm. Like, no, you're not supposed to say that. And I'll be like, I'll be having a conversation going, well, why? And they'll be like, because they're not supposed to know that information. Well, why? Because they're not supposed to know that information. You're not supposed to terrorize them. Just like, you know what I mean? Like the accident. You're not supposed to come out and say they're going to have an accident. You're supposed to go, okay, check your tires.
Yeah.
Give it to them like that. You know what I'm saying?
Red stop sign and
right.
I've had people come back and say, why did you look funny when I said I was going to the store and could I take your son? And you said no. I said, because I didn't want to say I saw you a car go through the stop sign and hit you, only because it's just weird sometimes. You don't know if you're causing it by thinking it or if you're actually seeing something that's destined. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah, and dreams are always prophetic. Always. There is always a message there, no matter how weird or strange or whatever. And everyone has a certain amount of time in which what their dream becomes a part of their reality in some way, shape, or form. And once you have gauged, if you write down your dreams and you just see how long it takes for you to be able to see something in your life that is directly relates to the dream, once you have that time frame figured out, then you'll know whether it's 2 weeks or 2 days or 7 days or 6 weeks or whatever it is. You'll know and the time frame wherein it manifests is constant. As soon as you figure out what that time frame is, it will be always exactly to that time frame. But our dreams also have a great deal to say to us. It isn't that we're just dreaming about someone else with a message for them. There is always a message for us there as well.
Of
and
course.
I think it's really important that we don't get so full of ourselves that we think, oh, this is for so-and-so, I have to tell them this. It's really important that we sit with it first and say, now, what part of that is for me? What do I have to, what am I supposed to get out of this? Because it's your dream, it's coming from your consciousness, there's a message for you in there. And just like almost every reading we give, no matter how many there are, there's something in every reading that we take away that is very important for us to hear. So go ahead.
Just like every psychologist or every psychiatrist, every person they treat has something to do with them.
Absolutely.
You know, so I mean, we're all part of the same spark, the same light. So there has to be some part of it has to connect us in some aspect or another. So when I had that dream, I could totally see how we were all like interconnected in there, and it was actually pretty cool. It was actually really, really cool. But I can see how difficult that would be in the harder things when you want to tell somebody something, but really feel like you can't, because it would alter a lot of things when they would have to find out on their own, and because they would have to walk that path and make their choices. And if you were to give them the information before the time that they were supposed to have it, you would put so many ripples in, not only change their timelines, but maybe possibly change many others.
Exactly. No, it's when you're talking about really, really profound things, like who was it? Gene Dixon tried to call the White House to warn Kennedy.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
He tried very hard, and you know, the reality is we go when we're supposed to go. There's no way to avoid it, even though some people like to think there is. When it's our time, it's our time, and they will find you wherever you are. So you know.
Sure. There are also, I don't know if people know that, you do have doorways.
I was going to say, they say that there's 3 times that you have an out.
And sometimes more. It depends on the person and the spirit. But, yeah, there are sometimes, if it's not a doorway for you, or if it is a doorway and you have a couple more after that, then you can sometimes negotiate your way out of leaving the game and stepping off the game board.
See, that's what I call it too. I'm glad I'm not the only one. I call it the labyrinth.
I saw that vision of a labyrinth. Did they ever show it to you? It's this labyrinth that I saw about 40 years ago, and around every corner is something to scare you or to send you back.
I would love that. Because I love to be scared.
Take it to the middle. You find yourself sitting there waiting for you.
Yeah. Well, that's true. That's what this lifetime is. That's what the spiritual journey is. And the reality is, you know, everybody says we're returning to God. We're returning to God. We're returning to God. But that other phrase, "we are who we're waiting for," comes in. So if you get to the middle of the labyrinth and you think you're going to find God and you find yourself, that tells you something.
It tells you a lot.
Yeah, I don't think we're gods in training. I think we're actually gods and we don't know it. And
gods in waiting.
Yeah. Well,
I believe New Testament didn't to say, "Ye are gods; these things I do, even greater you shall do."
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, it's. I think we've been told in so many different ways, in so many different philosophies, in so many different cultures that we have the potential for awakening, and our spirits are awake. They're fully functional, and often very frustrated with our personalities and how we're dealing with situations in our life, but it's our dealing that is giving it the material to be able to grow and expand into another level itself at some point in time. I always think that when I screw up the most, I'm helping it the most, but, you know, I haven't been able to win that argument quite yet. But it's sort of like, you know, if I make a big enough mess at this, you're really going to grow this time.
There you go.
I've always felt that way, too, that when I'm my dirtiest is when I'm my cleanest. Absolutely.
They say she's up real nice, doesn't she?
Yeah, and so long as you're not breaking the law, I think you're fine. But,
there you go.
Yeah, no, it's really, you know, the point of having discussions like this, the point of getting together and sharing philosophies is to further understand exactly the connection we have and to share it with other people as well, so that you know, everybody adds a little bit to it. Every time somebody voices something new or something else, we bring in a whole new level of understanding, and we all grow from it. Just me talking is only one dimension, but with 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 of us talking, that gives so much more energy to the whole group, so that everybody walks away wiser and excited and with greater intensity of purpose. We all are at a place in time where the spiritual journey is really important, and I don't think that until probably, I don't know how many, a decade ago for some, and the understanding that we have this journey that we're on. We're not stagnant, and we're not just people going through a spiritual journey. We really truly are a spirit on a human journey, and on a consciousness level, our ego is in awe of what's going on, and the spirit is trying hard to hang on for dear life, I think, in some cases, because the situations that we're asked for are so challenging to many of us. And yet, if we approach all of those hurdles, all of those struggles, all of those challenges that come our way with a creative sense of laughter and love, we can absolutely overcome anything. And I think that while a decade ago or 2 decades ago, most of us in this field were very isolated and operating on our own. And part of that was ego, and part of that was fear. But now, today, we have great comfort in getting together in groups like this and sharing philosophies, and not trying to one-up each other. It's this is what I believe, and this is how I feel. And it's important that we share. Yes, I know you have a soul, Jay. It's a soul man out there. He had to make himself known somehow.
About, if you don't mind, this is Marie again. About,
sure.
I don't know, it's been thousands of years ago, but Holy Spirit, what I call Holy Spirit, gave me, I don't know if I mentioned this before, I think it was like 13 different types of dreams when we're on the subject of dreams and premonition. And, of course, premonition is just a knowing of a future event that has a high probability of happening because time is on a continuum. So the past, the present, and future are all taking place at the same time. Mm-hmm. But there were also other types of dreams that were listed. If I can find it on my computer somewhere, I can send it to you. But one was the scary one that everyone thinks, oh, it's a scary dream. It's my subconscious trying to talk to me. Yes, sometimes that's your subconscious trying to get you to see something that you don't want to see. But there's also, we were told, some scary dreams are actually negative entities or spirits trying to infiltrate your space, and you are rejecting it via the dream. So it is real, and even science has documented poltergeists and other type of things. So when we tell kids there's no such thing as the ghost under your bed, that may not necessarily be true, and we need to honor the child's fear by giving them a Native American dream catcher or doing something to help calm that energy, because kids are really sensitive and they see things. Then there's the other type of dream, and I've had those, and I'm sure a lot of you have, where people's ancestors have come to me to tell me that their descendant who's still living now in this time is in trouble and want me to go help them or get up and pray for them. And a lot of times I don't feel like it, and then they'll hit me. Well, I'm so glad I'm off of prayer duty now. I don't have to get up in the middle of the night all the time. That was a dream for me, and it was symbolic. They even held up a picture of the person. And I'm going, well, who is it? And I had to trace that person down the next day to find out who it was and describe it to people. And then they said, oh, that's so-and-so. He's a famous baseball player. And so there's all kinds of dreams. I mean, I could go through a whole list. I think I've had at least of the 13 different types that are out there, and they're not just quote-unquote dreams. They're just altered consciousness.
Well, I would say that every dream is a vision on some level, and that how we deal with them, is appropriate. But I still want to repeat that even though it is a spirit talking and things like that, it absolutely has something to say to you, and it's really important that we understand that no matter what it is we're getting, there is a message for us. And a dream is a vision, and you can put it in lots of different categories, but still it's a vision, and still it's saying something to you, and still it is also giving you information about yourself as well. So it's important that we understand that too. I mean, yes, sometimes, we do have to take action and we do have to do things, but for the most part, there is also that obligation to ourselves that we are getting information, it is coming through us, and we need to deal with it. There are a lot of different things that go on, and I think that at this point we're not actually going the dream direction, but since you got us halfway there, it's important to realize that our spirit and understand when I say spirit, I'm talking about my higher consciousness. I'm not talking about some spirit that's floating out there. I'm talking about what I carry around inside of me. My spirit is trying to tune me in and put me in connection to other aspects of the spiritual realm. And sometimes it helps me to connect with people that have passed over, and sometimes it's tuning to an energy that is here. So there are a lot of different ways that dreams, do help us. I do want to go back just a little bit to Jan, and she's talking about she does animal totems on the air. Okay, wait, I'll go back to that in a minute. I think Queen has something she wants to say if I can find her. Hi, Queen, are you there? Hi, Queen.
Oh, ego. Hi. I was listening to you all talking about ego.
Ego.
Ego. The ego where you will is what I received from the ego. And the person that was talking about that I self be true, I'm with her, because love one another as I have loved you. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. We are all connected, so we say. So we know. And giving oneself the very best is the best way to do it. Because you will not only know how to treat yourself royally and divinely, but you will also know how to treat others that way. So even though you have been giving, and her saying, giving, I know that song. I wrote it. Many verses to it. And to be willing to receive it, to receive is a mastery unto itself. And by putting into oneself that figure eight, you have more to give out. And you all were talking about dreams, and I had a dream the other night. I shared a lot of dreams with the Reverend Ann, and I had a dream the other night about a car I had just purchased a month or two ago. and it was a used car, and satisfied my pocket and my energy. But this car was parked in a garage. I don't have a garage, and the tires on the back of the car, one in particular, was like blown. It was like blown in half. It was damaged very badly, and the other one had something sticking in it or something. I mean, it brought my attention, but not enough. I spoke to someone about it, and that was that. And it was in the midst of other dreams, because I'm a dreamer, and I'm grateful that I am. I call forth more. And I also have prophetic dreams, which stated many of us do, and if they don't, you will. And I went out yesterday, and the car said oil, telling me my oil was low. So I went and I had an oil change. And while I was getting my oil change, this guy comes out from underneath the car, and he said, your rear left tire is dry rot. He said, we don't sell tires here, but he said, you better get you a new tire. So I take it not far away. It was within the time frame of someplace for me to go and get the tires. I ended up getting 4. And I had a little inkling about the tire, but the person I bought the tire from, the dealership that I bought the car from, had been driving this car. This is a person that sells cars for a living. I bought 2 very good cars from him. He'd driven the car, over 1,000 miles, and let his son drive the car, so on and so forth. It never even occurred to me. I had an inkling. But I am so grateful, because had I not had that dream, and that guy had come and said it to me, I might have just let it be. And you all would be hearing about me on the news or something. Or I'd have different news to be telling. The dream life to me is as real as this experience now. And about being balanced, the goddess Ma'at is a dear friend of mine. She is embedded in my signature in many different ways. And to be able to be balanced is to balance the left and the right, to be in harmony with spirit, the spirit that has been spoken of, the spirit who we all came from, the spirit who is us, and many aspects of us all around us. And by linking into that and not getting caught up in other people's interpretation of what it is to be connected to spirit is a challenge, but yet one that is easily mastered if we will. So I say, ego, on your way, and have a sacred day. No, you're having one. Enjoy it.
Absolutely. I think that one of the things that most of us on a spiritual journey run into is overinterpretation. You can look at a dream or a vision as what's there. There are underlying factors, certainly, but you can go too far. You can go so far that it becomes ridiculous. I mean, you could have gone into let me see, a car represents my emotional body, and is my emotional body in danger of whatever, or, you could look upon it like you did, quite literally and appropriately. But sometimes there are deeper meanings. Sometimes there are more meanings. Sometimes there are deeper, more philosophical meanings to the entire dream. And it's important to look at them, but look at them with both feet on the ground and a balanced perception. Not trying to read something into it, but trying to read more deeply into it and understand what it is your consciousness, your spirit is trying to tell you. Sometimes the brain is just a bird. Yeah, that's true too.
I think you read it just right. I think that you looked at it as your attitude. Was your attitude balanced? Was it rotted? Is the relationship, was there friction in the relationship there for your oil? Oil usually is something that eases friction. You had that changed. That wasn't the problem. You know, so therefore it drew you to the tire. The tire is all about balance, but the tire really wasn't in need of balance. It was dry rotted. So you really needed to have it replaced, and it was the left tire, which is usually the female aspect.
And the receiving.
So.
And you know, we receive from the left and we give from the right. So I mean, right. we can take it apart, you know, way down, and all of the interpretations will apply. That's what's so cool about it. And so long as you're not trying to, you know, I find that when we get a vision or an inspiration or insight, and it's absolute, like, yes, do this or do that, then that's usually the ego. But when we get something that there is, we are left to our own free choice to choose, then that's truly our higher consciousness, because we are given the information and we can choose whether to act on it or not. We can choose whether to perceive it as a message from our higher consciousness and pay attention to it, or we can call it something else and we move on. So that sometimes it's the ego. And if it's the ego, for instance, if you had a dream, and ego does get into our dreams too. Don't ever think it doesn't, because it does. And if you were dreaming of friends and you had a dream that you were supposed to let go of this one person because she wasn't good for you, that's your ego. If you were given some sort of a message that you saw her as in front of a mirror and that her reflection was not exactly what she looked like, that would be saying that maybe there was something else inside of her, and you might want to take a closer look at the relationship you had with her. That would have been your higher consciousness. When you get an absolute, absolutely ignore it.
You know, as I was listening, what came to me too, the quotes that I came in with, is know thyself. And that is key. That is key. And I also want to say that part of my current experience in terms of dream interpretation, I mentioned that I had spoken to the Reverend Ann, I like to call her Illumination. She had a series of programs that enabled me to open up more easily to access from a broader vantage point the arena of dreams. So once again, I thank you, my sister. What do you say, sister?
I said you are very welcome.
Yes, always a pleasure. No, I think, you know, we are you know, really involved with dreams, and I do want to say that the dream state is very close to that intuitive state that we all are so used to, and, you know, talking to ourselves. And I think that what everybody, I want everybody to understand is truly when you are talking to spirit, you are talking to yourself. And I know that, forget who it was now, dang. It was Jan. That you know, she mentioned that she got animal totems, and she shared the animal totems, and so she's sometimes worried as to whether they were accurate or not. When you are giving purely what you get, when you are giving selflessly, you're always right. Always. Now, it may not be what the person wants to hear, and it may not be right for that person at that time, but so long as you are genuinely giving exactly what it is you're getting, you're right. And I think so many people worry about, am I right or am I wrong? your spirit is giving you information and you've repeated it, you're right. You gave what spirit gave you. You're a medium, and that means you're a channel, and that means that you just give what you get. So you're always right. Now, people may say, no, I can't relate to that, or no, that doesn't make sense to me, but you're right. You gave them what you got. And that's what we're obligated to do. We're not obligated to give people what they want to hear. We're obligated to give people what we hear our spirits say. And as purely and as honestly as you can, if you're giving information exactly as you get it, you are always right. And when it comes to things like animal totems, when it comes to things like dream catchers, when it comes to things like medicine wheels, when it comes to so long as you are following what your spirit is asking you to say, you are absolutely right, because your spirit is all-knowing. Your spirit is a part of creation. Your spirit has total awareness. And whether or not the person recognizes the authenticity of what you're saying or not, that's not the issue. The issue is they have to be open to hear what your spirit has to share with them. So please, Dan, understand, you're always right. We're always right. People may not hear us, but you're always right. Althea has something more she wanted to add. Hi, Althea. You're open.
Hi, Barbara. One thing I'm thinking of with this also is we have to be careful as readers not to be voyeurs. Sometimes we're just a true channel for the message, and we can't get wrapped up in, do we understand what it means? We just have to be true to whatever the message is that we're seeing. So it's more important that our client gets it, or whoever we're reading for gets it, and also not get too into the, I want to understand and I want to know what this means. It's like that can interfere as much as well. So I think trusting that whatever the impression is that we get, it's accurate, whatever it is, and our deal with spirit is whatever we see, we say, or whatever we get, we share, if that's what we also do. Because, I think on one level we get the impression, then we have to say, well, what's the so what, right? Why am I seeing this thing? What's the part of this? And then what are we supposed to do about it? And if it's share it and say it and here it is, that's fine. Even if it doesn't mean anything specific to us, we have to still trust it. So it's trust on our side as well as on the client's side, but being true to the message is the most important thing, whether we personally understand it or not.
Yeah, and I think also one of the biggest pitfalls is I can embellish this and it sounds so much better, but the reality is you can embellish the truth right out of what you said. So
right, because you might be interpreting it instead of literally sharing what you're getting. You're trying to help them, and by trying to help them, you actually mess it up.
Yeah, and that happens to all of us at the very beginning. So, we all, to be perfectly honest, I have not only put both feet in my mouth, but I've had room for a couple of arms and hands too, so that. I had screwed up royally in my 50 years. So, so Glennis wants to know, so when reading, the first thing that comes into mind, do we accept that it is of the higher self and its true message? No, not the first thing that comes into your mind. The first thing that you feel is a true message. If you're thinking you want to give a message, you're coming from your intellect, and that's not what you're supposed to be doing, in my opinion. Totally my opinion here. If you have to think, then you're not allowing the spirit to come through. So that the first thing that comes, usually the first thing that comes out of my mouth is much more accurate than what I think I should be saying. And you don't think a spiritual message, you allow it to flow. So that if you're coming out with I think, you're in your intellect. When you're saying, this is what I feel, then you're probably talking to the spirit.
Yes.
And it's hard sometimes, it really is, to differentiate between the two. Sometimes you know what you should be saying, but spirit is saying something else. And then there's a hell of a battle that goes on inside the head. I get caught on the horns of that dilemma most often when somebody asks me, they have a choice they have to make, and they're saying, which way should I go? And usually the choice is, how do you feel? Where do you feel you should go? You don't make that choice for them. You don't give them an answer. And the one time I did give an answer, a woman, her husband was in bed, and he was catatonic, and he had been brain dead for a number of days, and she called me and she said, I don't know what to do, if I should wait longer and see if he comes back, or what should I do? Tell me what, tune into him and tell me what he thinks, what he wants. And I didn't feel that was the responsibility that I should have, but I did. And the message I got from him was, tell her that she should make the choice she would want me to make if positions were reversed. I put it back in her lap. It isn't for us to make decisions and choices for other people. It's for us to give information that helps them to make their own choices.
Yeah, I always think, help me to help you.
Yeah.
It goes back to that saying, I don't want to do it for you. I want to show you so that you could do it for yourself.
Well, stop and think a second. If you as a reader make a decision for someone spiritual, any decision in their life is a spiritual choice. So if you make it for them, you have taken away the right of choice from them.
Right.
And sometimes we need to make mistakes in order to learn.
Absolutely.
I'd like to add, this is Marie again. There have been times when people have asked me to ask. For me, it's Holy Spirit, or if it's an ancestor or Mother, Father, God, whoever, whatever divine energy is coming in for them at the time. They'll say, well, I want to do this and this, like I want to go marry this man. And I have never heard, since I've been doing this for a long time, I've never heard divine spirits say yes or no. They always say, they might say, this is not what we want, we dream for you or want for you. We think it'll be too hard, but if you want to, we support you in it. It's always that choice. It's always left to the person's final choice.
Yeah, I truly don't believe that spirit gives us the right to make choices for another person. I do feel that when we do that, we take on the responsibility of that other person's life, even though they haven't asked us. And that's something that we need to, and we will suffer the consequences of our actions, and that takes us right back to cause and effect. If you make a choice for another person, you have to live with not only, they have to live with the results of allowing somebody to make their choice, but we have to live with the fact that we have done that to them as well. So that when there's such responsibility when you're tapping into spirit and sharing what spirit gives you, so that it's a matter of understand that should I sell my house now or later? What do you feel? You don't give them an absolute. If you give them an absolute, you've made a choice and a decision for them, and that's not appropriate. Our duty, our purpose is to share what spirit has to share, and often the ego hops in and says, I'll take this one, I can answer this one because I know what the market is and I can tell her whether it's a good idea or not to sell her house or buy her house. And that's not the point.
Well, even think of us as parents and what we do for our children. Because as a parent, we feel we know best.
I know.
You know what I mean? And you know, aside from spirit, you know, us being women, moms, and you know, very capable mothers. And Barbara, controlling as we are.
Yes.
You know, and loving as we are. You know, we want to do everything to make sure our kids are well protected. And then what we're left with is either a kid who is just like us, or a kid that can't do anything for themselves, that is totally dependent upon us.
And what about self-fulfilling prophecy, that what you speak, you give life to? And a lot of times mothers, being protective, can be kind of fear-based for their children, and sometimes you're drawing those situations to your children unconsciously, or even setting it in their mind that it's going to happen. So it's kind of precarious and delicate operation being a parent and what comes out of your mouth. You know, it's a struggle. Oh my, what does that set your child up? But I've heard parents say that a lot.
But it's very true. And being a parent, sometimes being a strong parent makes it difficult for a child to, I call it, find their shadow. If you are so strong and overpowering that your shadow is obliterating theirs, you deprive them of the opportunity to learn and grow and make the mistakes along the way, so that they don't have to make the big mistakes. If you protect them so much that they avoid the little mistakes, then they're destined to make the big ones. And you know, you have to stand back. You have to know when you have to know when it's time to stand back and allow them to become their own person. And that's a hard thing to do. But you know, some of us do it better than others, and some of us screw it up royally. And sometimes if you have very bad parents, you become a very good parent. And sometimes you become such a good parent that you're an overly good parent. But you know what? Kids grow up in spite of us.
That's true.
And they become
sometimes you could have the worst parents in the world, and the kids still grow up and they're amazing. Just amazing. And then they have kids, and their kids are horrible.
Well, it's genetic, you're saying.
It's every other generation.
I guess, yeah.
But you know, it's almost, you know, it's the same rule of thumb, though. And it's difficult. It's you can't make choices for other people, is the bottom line. Everyone has to really take responsibility for their own actions. Even when doing intuitive work, it's free will, it's cause and effect. If someone is calling you and asking you a question, your responsibility as an intuitive person is to assist and guide, not to dictate.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you know, most of us have never, you know, all of us have never been mothers before. So we do the best we can, and we try to do better than our mothers did, and yada yada yada. But the reality is, we're guided by what we have inside of us, and if we trust our own intuition, we're perfect mothers. I was perfect. I'm sure, Annie, you're perfect. I mean,
I'm perfectly awful.
We do the best we can, and we love them, and that's the bottom line. You love them as much as you can, and you know that they are going to do a magnificent job in life, and you set them loose, and you know, you don't kick them out of the nest too early, and they all survive in spite of us, and they become their own person and understand that every spirit that, grows up as a child becomes their own person.